guys, welcome to another episode of Stable Talks. I'm here with Julián. How's it going?
Hey, Caio, how are you? Very happy and excited to have another fantastic conversation today on this amazing topic that is stablecoins.
Okay.
Exactly. Today we have a very exciting conversation. So I'm here with Rachel from Yellow Card. How's it going, Rachel?
Hi, everyone. It's going well. I'm Rachel, and I've been with the Yellow Card team for a bit, pushing marketing conversations around. But it's nice to be here, Jan and Caio.
That's good. That's
Very nice
good.
to Yeah,
Very nice to
nice to
meet
have
you.
you here. We are super happy to expand our knowledge. We have been talking about Latin America a lot,
Mhm.
but today we're taking a journey across the Atlantic to explore another of the most exciting stablecoin markets in the world, which is Africa. So we are very excited to know what we have to tell from there and to compare and to learn more what is happening.
Awesome. Let's get into it.
Rachel, I think like for the most part, people might know Yellow Card already because you guys have been rocking it, but they might not know you. So I think we can start with the introduction here. So if you can tell us about yourself, your background, and how did you actually get involved into crypto and Yellow Card?
Okay, great. So for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Rachel, and I've been in the stablecoin space or crypto space for the past 8 years. But actually, I've been working with Yellow Card for the past 2 years and 7 months. I My love for stablecoins of crypto space started in 2018, no, 2017 actually, when I started off as a portfolio manager. So for better context, I used to help HNI manage their portfolio, tell them when to invest. Please don't take this as investment advice, but I don't do it anymore. So I would help them invest huge amounts of money into currency or projects that would do well and manage projects up to when they're fruitful or viable, and then these clients can sell off. So with that, I penetrated the space. I wanted to penetrate like the working space, and I started off as an operations manager, working with like startups, helping startups in the crypto space. And I joined Yellow Card in 2022. And I joined Yellow Card as a regional marketing manager for the West African region and the Francophone region. So for better context, what I've been doing with Yellow Card for the past was to help come up with go-to-marketing strategies for the West African region, so the Francophone region, help people understand what stablecoins are, how Yellow Card as a payment infrastructure was leveraging stablecoins to solve daily issues that these clients or customers were experiencing in those regions. I've done that for like 2 years. As at early this year, January, I pivoted to like the B2B space. So for better context, Yellowcard has been in the B2C space since 2019. And this year, earlier this year, we pivoted to the B2B space because we saw like use case value for some clients, especially in the global region and in the African region for the products that we had. So we have a product called Treasury Management Tool. So what we do is to help clients, large enterprise, move huge volumes, amounts of money across the border, leverage stable coins. And I'm at the forefront of that with marketing conversations, pushing the conversations, making sure awareness is gotten, making sure that our clients understand what this product is all about, and we're helping them solve real life solution problems and helping them save money, helping them save time as well. So that's what I've been doing in the space for a bit.
That
That's amazing. And you have gone through a lot of stuff and different relevant aspects for us. So, like, besides like digging deeper in your particular experience, I'm really interested in the last part you just mentioned, which is like solving real problems, no? Like bringing real use cases through
Mhm,
crypto. So,
mhm,
Eurocard has evolved from being a crypto broker first
yes,
to then like becoming a payments infrastructure relying on stablecoins.
yes.
So, has how has your approach evolved from like the basic like knowledge or stuff we used to make through crypto to now
Okay.
like this you just mentioned, which is like solving real use cases using stablecoins.
Okay, great. That's a great question because when you are dealing with clients, actually, if you're dealing with customers on B2C side and you're dealing with clients on the B2B side, you have to understand who your clients are. After segmenting these clients and knowing their understanding level of the crypto space, in the stablecoin space, that will help you in interacting with these clients better. So what we do first is start at the awareness stage. And when we're dealing with customers, in the past, when we're running B2C campaigns, we will start with product education. So before we get to product education, we'll start with awareness about the space. So do people understand what crypto is? Do they understand what stable coins are? Do they understand how stable coins helps them each day? So for the B2C side, usually customers will use stable coins as a store of value or as a way to exchange, like for clients who are crypto invested, as a way to move their projects that they've been holding for a bit to stable coins. So for clients who have been holding Bitcoin for years or holding Ethereum, if they want to sell this project or sell these tokens, how to put these tokens to stable coins and say them a platform, reliable platform that helps them do that. Also, as a store of value, I think I spoke about store of value. So for clients, usually in the African space, there is the valuation of currency, and then for clients to be able to hedge their currencies against inflation or devaluation of currency, they would store these stable coins. They would move those currencies to stable coins and store it on yellow cloud. But that's on the BTC slide. Also, we had issues with cross-border transfers. For example, we had a product at BTC side. We had a product called Yellow Pay. And what Yellow Pay does is to help clients transfer money to friends and family from one African country to the other. So, for example, it is a customer in Nigeria that wants to send money to a friend or a family member in Ghana, and they're looking for an easier way to transfer Naira to Ghana cedis. They would use Yellow Pay to do that. So, leveraging stable coins, we would easily make that transfer network in less than 1 minute, right? Instead of using your regular Western Union and MoneyGram and the rest. So that's what we were doing on the B2C side. So we pivoted to the B2B side, and product offerings changed, except it changed with regards to like the problems we're solving. And some of these use cases we've seen on the B2C side, they're a little bit numerous. For example, we have payments API. So what we do with payments API is we help global companies that are outside the African region that will want to interact with their customers, their clients, just their customers in the African region that want to offer using their platform. So they will leverage, integrate our API to offer different coins or tokens to the African region for their clients. So it's easier for their customers to interact with these global companies, leverage payments API. So that's what in terms of helped global companies solve that problem. So that's one use case. Another use case that is really important, and we've seen a lot of trend in growing recently, has been large enterprise that we want to move money from the African region to global suppliers. For example, enterprises within the oil and gas space, within energy and utility, within the manufacturing space, in the logistics space, and there are a lot of industries. So for enterprises or clients, we move volumes, let's say millions of dollars across the regions to their suppliers or their business partners, or even to make payment options to be divided, will help them process those payments. And we do that leveraging stable coins. So that's the use case. So we are helping the treasury management, and we're helping these companies move better, improve their business relationships with their clients and their suppliers over the border. We're also helping them save costs. For example, 2 days ago, I had a call with a client, and this was a client that would spend huge amounts in fees and he's leveraging MoneyGram, Western Union to do transfers, and taking him 3 to 5 days to do that. But he found out about Yellow Card because he was doing his research. He knew it was a faster way to do that. And well, thanks to our SEO and for the conversations we were pushing in the space, he was able to find Yellow Card. And he was talking about all of these pain points and how it has frustrated his business activities and operations. And I told him that, do you know that we can solve this for you in less than 1 minute? You can transfer these huge volumes of money across the border to over 200 plus countries, depending on where you're operating in. And he was pretty excited. Like right now, we're onboarding him. So that's one use case that we see. Aside treasury management, we see that we're saving this client cost. We're saving them money when it comes to transfer fees, and we're also saving them time. And if there's one thing that matters to business, it's time, because with that time they can do a lot of things. So that's another use case we've seen. So depending what aspect of what angle this client are. So if it's customers, their daily use case for crypto or stablecoins is different. Even for the B2B side, the use cases are different, right? And then the new use cases we have now, that's assets tokenization, recently we're having clients who are asking about a virtual card option to load fund and like help pay their employees. So these are cases that we haven't even talked about but are also available, and the use cases keep multiplying as we enter or see the trends here with this day world. Yes.
Oh, so amazing. You guys have been busy. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you guys have been doing a lot of use cases. Seems very exciting. And I think we have a lot of parallels here, right? Regarding how the Latam region has been adopting stables and why, and how and why Africa is also adopting stablecoins.
Mhm.
We here always talking about our own reality. So I'm based in Brazil. Julian is based in Argentina.
Oh,
So
nice.
we kind of know the reasons why stablecoins have been growing like crazy, specifically in these regions where the economies are very unstable.
Mhm.
But there are very specific differences too in each of these specific countries. So, for example, Argentina and other places in Latam recently has been adopting stablecoins mostly because the people are been looking to protect themselves from inflation and all these problems. In Brazil, even though we also have problems with inflation, it's not near the situation of these other places. So people don't necessarily use stablecoins on a daily basis in Brazil. People mostly use like Bitcoin or other crypto for investment purposes. And they are
Yeah.
now, just now, starting to use stablecoins to actually have exposure to dollars. But on
Yeah.
the B2B side, on the other hand, we already see a huge volume,
Mhm.
specifically on B2B payments, so imports and exports and all those things. So
Mhm.
it's funny because even though we have a lot of similarities, even in LATAM, depending on the country, problems might be similar, but the use cases vary a lot. So
Yeah.
based on this, I would love to hear your thoughts on how the African region has been. Has its own specificities, right? So for country to country, based on Africa discussions that I sometimes have, I always hear about Nigeria. So
Yes.
I would love to hear your thoughts on the main markets and how each one of them is developing.
Okay, so for the main market, so you have different regions. So there's the Eastern African region, there's the SADC region. That's where you have like South Africa, you have Namibia and the rest. There's also the West African, the Francophone region, where you have the French-speaking countries, right? And you're right, there are peculiarities within these regions, but there are also differences when it comes to these regions as well. For example, in the francophone speaking part, you would get crypto adverse people and crypto inclined clients as well. So for the crypto adverse, we have noticed that the anglophone speaking part of the francophone side, for example in Cameroon, are more crypto inclined, but the French speaking aspect of the francophone region are not really crypto inclined, right? So for conversations around crypto, you would have to do a lot of education, but you would have to tell them how this fits into their daily life, how it helps them, make money. They want to see about the viability when it comes to the crypto space. So that's for the French speaking part. But for the English speaking part, they've heard about crypto. Probably there are people who migrated from other parts of the world to those regions. They've heard about crypto. They understand the use cases. They just want to know what's in it for them. How are you helping them solve their real time problems? But that's for the francophone side. When it comes down to the SADC region, Yellow Card, we have the regulations we need, the papers we need, licenses when it comes to like the SADC region, especially in South Africa. So we've noticed that the South African market is pro crypto. We've seen them go into like the sandbox to have conversations around how to make this the companies that are penetrating the region better, and how this product and product offerings they are offering to their users, how it makes their users' life better. So we've had conversations around that. The South African government is just like pro-regulating the space and making sure that the clients or the customers are better off at the end of the day. So we've seen that this helps crypto companies or organizations that are there sit very within the lines of the regulatory bodies, and to come up with policies, help even come up with policies that would help the space. But we've also seen that a huge amount of trust for the space in total when it comes to like stable coins and even other crypto tokens as well. And that's because the government is pro crypto, right? And they've put in the necessary measures to make sure this space is regulated and this space is the policies are well adhered to. And we've seen that this has helped in adoption of stable coins. We've seen a lot of other companies, our competitors, even pushing conversations around that. But the good thing about Yellow Card card and why it is very popular in the SADC region is because we teach this customers and even the clients how we help them solve their daily problems and how we're helping them solve their problems on the B2C side, how they can make stablecoins their store of value, how they can use stablecoins to off-ramp like most of the tokens they've been holding for a while, and also how they can make cross-border transactions with little or no fee when they're leveraging Yellow Card as a platform. And on the B2B side, how we can help them settle their invoices for clients who want to settle invoices across borders, how we can help with their treasury management, unlike how the local or traditional financial institutions would. So we've seen that they are really pro crypto and pro stablecoins, especially because of the regulatory groundwork that has been done in the space. But when it comes to the Eastern African region, right, we've also seen, because of the tech ecosystem and how there are a lot of conversations that has been pushed in the space, you will see a lot of tech conferences in the Eastern African region, that's in Kenya as well. That has laid the groundwork for most of the conversations and most of the companies that want to enter into the space. So we've seen that these clients or customers are like pro crypto, but only when they're incentivized, right? And that is, it was a learning curve for us on the B2C side because we've had to push a lot of campaigns, but they're incentivization campaigns that would help, push the narrative that we're pushing as at that time. But when it comes to West Africa, that's where we see organic demand generation, right? And that's because we have a lot of, in the West African region, there are a lot of startup founders, that, especially in the blockchain space, you see a lot of startup founders every year coming up. And those people want APIs to integrate. They want platforms that can manage their treasury management when it comes to like their clients or also even their partners across the borders. So we've seen this demand gen being driven. And this also comes from like the data we review at the end of the day. We would see like organic generation of like these clients or interests or prospects coming in at the end of the day. And that's because there is a huge understanding of what crypto is about. There is a huge adoption in Nigeria. In Ghana, it's a different case, even if it's in the West African region. And I said there's huge adoption in the West African region. The regulatory landscape is a bit different, right? In Nigeria, for example, there are conversations and policies coming up about crypto regulation. The SEC has come up with and the CBN has come up with a policy for crypto organizations, especially those from the diaspora, to be regulated and then to meet certain criteria before they get fully registered. And we have a lot of companies in the sandbox, really going through it and making sure they're getting registered, fully registered, so they can operate without concerns. And Yellow Card is actually one of those companies actually doing that right now. And that was released as at sometime in December, the new policies. But when it comes to Ghana, which is still in the West African region, the conversation within the regulatory landscape is totally different. So we see that the Bank of Ghana is not really forthcoming with regulating crypto. And that has caused a lot of hiccups when it comes to companies like Yellow Card that want to operate in the region. But we're still seeing a lot of crypto adoption in Ghana. Right, we're seeing people want to transact because Ghana has one of the highest inflation rates when it comes to the West African region, and that is causing people wanting to look for alternative use cases or alternative platforms they can use to hedge their funds against inflation or also manage devaluation of currency. So in as much as we're seeing massive adoption in Ghana, we're seeing that these customers or even clients are a bit weary in how they go about these conversations or how they go about their transactions because they don't have the full backing of the government. But that is not the case in Nigeria, and that is not the case in the South African region. So like I said, even if African region as a whole has gotten on board with the conversations around stable coins and cryptocurrencies, we're seeing differences with regards to the regulatory landscape. We're seeing differences with regards to crypto adoption and how as a business you manage these conversations and you manage penetration into the market matters a lot. So you have to have understanding of what is happening in the space and how you as a business is going to penetrate the space if you're going to make your mark on that ground.
Well, cool. And you mentioned, and I want to dig deeper on this new sexy topic, which is regulation, no? That the US is taking, that Europe has been taking since a couple of years ago. I couldn't stop thinking on how similar the realities to the countries in Latin America is, because when you were talking about the situation in Ghana for example, when even with no crypto-friendly regulation, people need to use crypto to
Yeah.
hedge on inflation, on the devaluation of local currencies, like to solve real use cases. So we have been seeing here like countries where like the crypto regulation has been made like almost like bottom up from like people using crypto, then to the government realizing that crypto is a topic that needs to be addressed,
Yeah.
compared to other countries which start like drafting a regulation and then like incentivize or trying to incentivize the use of crypto. No? And now with like major players like the US government issuing like Genius Act, like the Clarity Act being discussed, like very like influential governments in the world. I don't know, like if you think like this kind of like Western hemisphere, like the Europe plus the US regulation is gonna have some effect in kind of harmonizing this kind of mosaic that you have in your region.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really excited that you mentioned the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. So it's one of the things. For better context, I'm in the US. I stay in Delaware, so it's one of the cases we've seen in the last couple of months or weeks. And aside, in addition to the Clarity Act and the Genius Act, we also have the Anti-CBDC Act, which is good because it stops like the government or other like financial institutions from like coming up with CBDCs. And this is the first time we're having the first pro crypto congress ever, which is really exciting for us on the space, because when the US as a major world player is taking actions like this in the regulatory landscape, it gives other countries like in the developing countries or emerging markets like the go ahead to, okay, actually go for this, because if the US can back crypto and back stable coins and come up with regulations that are really pro crypto and approve the companies in the space, it gives them the go ahead they need if there was ever like a hesitation from their end. And I think that's really good. For the Genius Act and the Clarity Bill, it is really interesting. We're seeing that in the space, and we're seeing major players in the US, like maybe like a Coinbase, having conversations and being a part of those people coming up like with these rules, with these policies, or even in the middle of these conversations when the Congress is dealing with these conversations. And it's something we really want to see, because at the end of the day, this, in as much as we know that the US is still looking out for the companies that are within its space, that are incorporated in its space, and watching out for them so they can thrive. But there's a ripple effect this has across the globe. And that ripple effect is it gives like the organizations across the globe, it gives like the other governments, like the authority, not even the authority, they go ahead to do this. And that's what we want to see ideally in the space. And I think that's going to have an effect in developing countries like Nigeria, and even in the African region as well. So we're hoping to see the effect it's going to have, at least from now to the end of the year. And we're actually here for it. It's been a long time coming, to be honest.
That that's amazing. And other of the things I guess it would be relevant for is that we have been more like I want to find like this point of comparison. We have been having a lot of issues with the connection on banks. No, like when it
Okay.
comes to like bridging the gap between the crypto world and the fiat world, we
Mm-hmm.
need an essential partner, which are banks. Like places where the people who have fiat money kind of be able to deposit or withdraw and then like convert into and from crypto. No.
Uh-huh.
And we have been seeing that one of the advantages of having a regulation or a positive regulation is that banks are becoming less adverse to onboarding crypto related companies or clients. So is this something that also happens in Africa? You are seeing like banks are becoming more friendly with like crypto related ops as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like in Africa, again, the context I gave earlier with regards to the regulatory landscape actually helps, because, for example, in Nigeria, we do have the moment prior to the government coming up with the SEC, that's the Security and Exchange Commission, coming up with like policies within the space to regulate crypto organizations or organizations involved in the blockchain space. We were seeing banks say no to a lot of conversations around crypto, or even a lot of integrations, right? But the minute that policy went into effect and it was announced in the news, the like 24 hours later, their decision changed, right? And that goes a long way to show how regulation goes, how it plays, how is a major factor in when it comes to this conversation and when it comes to stablecoins adoption within emerging markets and also within the African space. So that's what we've seen, and that's just within Nigeria. In Ghana, on the other hand, prior to the government, the Central Bank of Ghana coming up to say, oh, do not interact with any company that is dealing with crypto. If you're interacting with them, you're doing that on your own accord. It is not licensed. They don't have the backing of the Central Bank of Ghana. Prior to that, we would see the banking infrastructure or the banking space interact with crypto organizations or stablecoins, interact with stablecoins, or even want to have conversations with integrations and all of those kind of, dicey conversations. But the minute the Central Bank of Ghana made that statement, there was a pullback from all of them, right? Because no one wants to go beyond the lines that have been drawn by these regulatory bodies. So that goes to show the positive effect of regulation and, the authorities and with their stance when it comes to stablecoins and the crypto space, and also the adverse effect. I don't want to call it negative effect, but the adverse effect it can have to within the space and how it can impact the adoption rates when it comes to Africa. That's just an example. The same case in the SADC region in South Africa. The minute there was a sandbox, the minute there were policies, the minute we had regular checks from the South African government doing these checks when it comes to all of these crypto organizations, we saw that clients and customers were a bit forthcoming to interacting with the companies and interacting with crypto organizations and even interacting with the products, and it increased the crypto adoption rate and even the stablecoins adoption rate in the space in South Africa. So regulation goes a long way to increasing adoption and also increasing awareness when it comes to stablecoins. It just depends on if the government in itself and the regulatory bodies, if they are keen on adopting, having a handshake with these organizations, which is the crypto organizations, or if they want to stay out of the conversations. If they want to stay out of the conversation, it's good for them, but it's bad for the economy, right? Because the world is pro crypto now, right? The world cannot ignore the importance of crypto or even stablecoins. Even the traditional financial institutions, especially the ones in the US, are now adopting crypto and now having conversations. And I mean, if major world players like the US are doing that, I mean, it's just it's detrimental to our growth as an economy in the African region if we don't start having these conversations, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. You mentioned one thing that which is pretty interesting. That one of the main things that have been very strong in these discussions on the U.S. is the anti-CBDC thing.
Yeah.
And this is funny because I don't know if you know that, but in Brazil we actually have a CBDC project that has been going on
Oh,
for 4 years, I think. But there has been like a pilot for the CBDC for 3 years. It was split into three phases. And the end decision of the central bank literally last month was we are not using blockchain. So
typical.
They took
apparently,
so long, to move from
Typical.
step one to step two to step three to step four.
yeah, exactly,
Three
exactly.
years?
3 years, yeah. So, and the discussion was all about because in Brazil, and this is kind of a similar situation with other emerging markets where because of the whole economy situation, we need to be creative in solutions. So Brazil will have Pix, which is an instant payment system, which is amazing, 24/7, free, blah blah blah. So we actually don't need stable coins or blockchain to payments locally. So the CBDC was pretty much focusing on tokenizing the economy as a whole, like financial
Oh,
instruments,
okay.
RWAs. And even with that, the government was like, okay, maybe blockchain is not the right way to solve this. And I'm telling you this because when this whole agenda, specifically through Trump, there was like, okay, I don't want CBDCs, I want to focus on stablecoins and all those things. We was like, okay, this is interesting because from our perspective as insiders and stablecoin builders, we was like, okay, maybe this is the right path. But who am I, right? But after this whole decision from the central bank, now the whole space is like, okay, maybe this is the path that Brazil will follow too. So based on this situation, going back to you again, Rachel, like I actually don't know. Has been any CBDC initiative in Africa?
Yes, actually, yes, in
Yeah,
Nigeria.
in Nigeria.
About that was in 20, if I'm not mistaken, in 2023, there was the government came up with like CBDCs. It was called CNGN, right? To date, there's been no adoption of that, right? And funny enough, it was a project that took billions of money and it was quite exciting. And this came post the last bull cycle we had, where crypto boomed a lot. Bitcoin had a lot of PR within Nigeria and even trended on days, like trended for like weeks on Twitter. Everyone was talking about it, right? And then the government is like, you know what? We need to buy into this, but how do we do this? Not having conversations with like players on the space. They wanted to come up with their own, currency, and it was called the CNGN. Until then, there's been no adoption. They don't even understand what it is. They didn't have a conversation with players on the space to see how this can be built the right way. But yes, so we've seen a case of the government going on a hype and getting into a space they don't yet understand and not working with like players, key players in the space to understand how this can work for its citizens and this can work for the economy at a whole. But yes, and that was a massive fail because no one is adopting that, right? And no one is adopting that when they have stable coins, right? That's a case of the government, not understanding and also not trying to even learn about it. And when that didn't work, the next stage was, oh, how do we get into the boardroom and have a conversation with with these key players in the space? And that led to them coming up with SEC coming up with the policies that has led to the registration of crypto organizations and even global companies that are penetrating Nigeria. So yes, we've seen a case like that where CBDCs has led to didn't actually work, but has led to future conversations that has worked in the space and has helped crypto adoption or stablecoins adoption in the space. That's one case I can give because I was there when the conversation started, and it was really funny because I knew it wasn't going to work out, and it actually didn't work out. And it took a time, and it doesn't actually take long to do push conversations like that or even come up with integrations like that or trends like that. So it's just a funny case, but also it's interesting to see how it ended up playing out, right?
Yeah, 100%. And just to follow up on this and I pass the ball to Julian, the situation here in Brazil about the CBDC thing is that they were trying to use blockchain in a way that blockchain was not built to use. Like they were trying to have the perfect product where at the same time you would have the transparency of blockchain, you would have the privacy of the financial, the traditional financial industry, you have the governance of the regulatory environment that we have in Brazil. So it was crazy because they wanted to have like this perfect CBDC slash blockchain project where you will have the best of both worlds, and on top of that also be scalable enough to be as close to PIX as possible, which is
That's a lot.
kind of impossible as the blockchain technology, at least private blockchain technologies
I
are
know
now.
it was already working.
Exactly, exactly. So it was funny because insiders, we as builders in the space, we were already talking about, okay, maybe this is not working, but they took longer to realize it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and maybe that's no,
go on.
sorry.
I was trying to give an example with the government of Estonia that has been like it should be the blueprint actually for like most of this market. I want to get into the conversation. So when you do have a pro crypto government, it makes conversations, it makes adoption easier, it makes conversations around the space easier. It also helps with penetration from like global companies or entities. And that is ideally what we want. The world, it's given the years when nobody wanted to adopt the internet because they were phased about it or they were not sure what it was. But now everyone has adopted it and everyone has come on board. And it's also given the case of people not wanting to get on board with Bitcoin, but now everyone is crying that, oh, I wish I bought it like 5 years ago. I wish I bought it like 2 years ago. This is going to be another case. So when trends are happening like this, as a government and a Congress in any country, it's either you adopt or you evolve or you innovate or you die. And the debt, obviously not literal debt, that kind of debt is not going to come instantly. It's going to come over the years. Your economy is going to get slower. You're going to get people migrating to economies that work. And over time, clients or customers are going to find solutions to their problem, whether you're the one providing the solutions or not. And it's better if you're the one providing the solutions because it opens up your economy and improves your GDP. And I don't know why governments are not looking in that direction, but I think they need people to explain that to them. So, but yeah.
Oh, sure. And I'm not a regulator. I used to be a regulator in my early 20s for a couple of years, but that's a different story. But it must be difficult as well for government officials to kind of allow like private companies like to have the like this like kind of monopoly on these new kind of dollars. So like I think it's a valid discussion, but also like if we have something that is working as you mentioned, Rachel, and that is already providing like solutions to the problems that people have. So let's use it. Let's mount on that. And I want to follow up on one of the things you mentioned when describing the use cases you have in Africa
Mhm.
and you are seeing on different countries. So we kind of have like this like dual like suite of solutions for like one A is like physical people like the retail users
Mhm.
using stablecoins and crypto for their own personal needs, and
Mhm.
B like the newer one is like companies and like businesses entering the crypto world for like different kind of purposes.
Mhm.
And I wonder where do you see like the trend is going on what you're working on, if like the levers of growth are like more put into like the development of the retail users, it's the business or corporate world, it's a combination of both.
Oh yeah, for yellow card, it's the B2B. We're headed B2B route, and the reason, aside the data from internal data on the direction of the business, the world, we've seen that institutions, entities, and even enterprises across the world are buying into crypto, right? And I guess it's like from the effect of institutions like MicroStrategy buying into crypto and the rest, into Bitcoin and the rest. So this gives like the organizations and even this major push by the US government and pushing a lot of policies into being passing a lot of bills into act that went a long way in convincing these institutions that the world is pro stablecoins now. So we're seeing the conversations head in that direction, right? And it's really funny because not funny, it's interesting because at the beginning of the year, usually they would do like a stablecoins projection, aside stablecoins projection, maybe a crypto projection of what prediction actually of what they think would happen by the end of the year, right? And this was one of the things they felt would happen. One of the things that we felt would happen at the beginning of the year was, before the year comes to an end, was the government, major global government, coming up with rules or regulations around crypto and wanting to be in the space and wanting to be a major player in the space. We also thought that stablecoins was going to get massive PR and companies on the traditional side would be, especially the traditional financial institutions, would buy into crypto. And we're seeing this kind of conversations coming like or come up, and institutions are buying into it, right? Another thing that happened that was a major changer in how these conversations are going was an integration that happened with Yellow Card and Visa 2 months ago, right? That was a major game changer for Yellow Card as a brand in the space because we got a lot of enterprise clients, major clients, huge clients globally looking for us and asking how they can partner with Yellow Card. And this wasn't something we saw in the past. And when I was on the conversations with one of these clients, the premise was, if Visa can trust Yellow Card and integrate with Yellow Card, I mean, why shouldn't we? Right? So these are the ripple effects of conversations and the space that happens, the massive PR that happens when it comes to all that stablecoins get when major global bodies and global governments are backing stablecoins, are talking about stablecoins, and making sure the landscape is very good and perfect for like the organizations within their governments to thrive, even though it's not favoring organizations outside their government. But that is a major game changer, and I think that is what we want to see. So for Yellow Card, we're going where the trends are, and we're also checking if that's what fits with our business model. And right now, the future is B2B. The future is integration and having conversations with the traditional financial institutions, and also having conversations with enterprises that are willing to leverage our product offerings to make a change in the markets they're operating in.
That's amazing. Seems exciting times for all
Yeah.
of us, actually, right? So yeah, I think I'm very excited on where the market is going. Of course, a lot of
Yeah.
challenges, regulatory side, a lot. Brazil is regulating, a lot of other countries are regulating the space, but overall, I think that It's the best time ever to be building with stables.
Yes,
But yeah,
yes.
Rachel, I really appreciate you coming up in our podcast. It was a very nice conversation. So I will just leave you if you have any final words. If you will, want to maybe share some socials, how people can find you in Yellow Card.
Oh,
Feel free to do this.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much, Carrie. It was so nice talking to you and Julian. I'm really excited when it comes to conversations around stable coins, around crypto, because 7 years ago I knew that was going to be the future, and I'm glad that I'm at the heart of where it matters, and I'm going in that direction. And I'm working with one of the amazing companies in the world that is in the middle of conversations around that, and that's Yellow Card. So for those of you that have not heard about Yellow Card, please check us out on our socials. Our website is www.yellowcard.io. But if you want to have a conversation with me, you want to catch up with me, my best bet is going to be LinkedIn. And my name is Rachael Akalia on LinkedIn. It is Rachael Akalia on Twitter. It is Rachael Akalia on Instagram, across all socials. So if you want to have a conversation with me, please shoot me a DM or connect with me. And I'm willing to have conversations, whether it's within the blockchain space, the stablecoin space, or even within marketing. I'm actively marketing, but for blockchain companies. So if you're willing to have conversations, rub minds together, please hit me up and we can get the conversation started.
That's amazing, Rachel, and thank you. I learned a lot about Africa, which is kind of a far region for me because I've been too focused on Latin America and what's happening in the US. So this conversation has been super enlightening for me as well. So thank you very much for being here, and until the next time.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me, Julian. Until next time, bye bye.